welcome to Coding with Kid, and in today's video we'll be talking about many command blocks and what they do. So basically we're talking about the basics of Scratch here. So we're going to be explaining to you about all these blocks, okay? So let's start with events. Event blocks are the things that you always want to start your code with, so you keep it neat. So what I would regularly use is when green flag clicked usually, but there's a whole bunch of other event blocks, and these event blocks are event blocks that let code happen after usually the game is started. So usually in the beginning you would want this event block to be applied, and after some actions occur, and like when this sprite is clicked and stuff, you can put that event block. So, and then this is an event block which lets you know when something can happen when a certain key is pressed. So if space key is pressed, then the code below will happen. And uh, uh, I'm usually going to be talking about the blocks we're going to use. Some blocks which we won't be using throughout the channel, and they're going to be unnecessary for us. So we're going to skip over here to say when I receive event block. This is an event block that lets us know that, so suppose we put a code and this broadcast message block here, uh, uh, broadcasts after the code happens a certain message, and when that message is received here, the next code starts to happen. If the message isn't received, since the code here is not produced, then this won't happen. Like the code under this won't start. So, uh, that's another event block here. So that's pretty much about events. Well, you'll learn more about it after we start coding actual stuff. So, and then next is control blocks. These are blocks that go after event blocks. So you literally loop this around all your code if you want it to be neat and clean. So let's see this block. This block makes the code stop for a second and then run the next few codes. So you can put this if you want your code to be nice and easy and like simple. So everything doesn't happen super fast. You can put this to make it happen one by one after a second. This block lets the code repeat a certain amount of times. So the code repeats until it finishes its 10th time. And then after that, there's a forever block. This makes it happen all the time you click green flag. It goes on forever. So the code goes on forever after you click green flag. It stops once you press the stop button. And then you have an if then block. So this one produces the code if something is true. So like if something is true, then the code will produce here. So there's many blocks you can put in that area there. Like a whole bunch of things from these other stuff that you can put to make it have like a if thingy. So if something is true, then the code in this block will happen. And then next you have if then else. So if something happens, something will happen. If that doesn't happen, then something else will happen. So we can put an alternative here, and that's pretty much for this. And then wait until. So we can make the code wait until something is true. So the code can wait, and then after this becomes true, then the code starts running again. And then another block is repeating until. So you can make it repeat until something is true. So all these blocks literally is give you some functions that happen, and after that function happens, then the code inside this. So you can put many various codes inside this, like that. And then if something happens, then this will broadcast a message. And something happens will be applied here. And I'll show you how to apply that after I go and explain you that block. So, and then you also have a stop all block. So after your code, you can stop your code first. You can stop your code. It just stops automatically. You don't need to press the stop button. It just stops automatically in the end. And then I don't think we're going to be using that, and either this and that. These won't be necessary for us, so we move on to sensing. So this is where you get your functions. So you can put these functions in these. So this, I'm pretty sure I explained this to you in our previous video. So these buttons are This button lets you know if the sprite is touching something. So if the sprite is like touching the edge, then we can put this and let something happen in between this block. And then this is if a sprite is touching any color that's associated in the background. So if the sprite is touching a color, then something will happen. So you can put these in that block, and then you can let a code happen. So then next, you have uh, if a color is touching another color. So basically, this won't have anything to do with your sprite. This is just letting you know that if a green color thing touches a orange color thing, then a certain code would happen. And you can change these colors to whatever color you want. Just click on it and then it changes color. 1 second. So like if you wanted to change color, click on it and then select any color on your background you want to make it set. So if I selected just a white background, then the color changes to white. And if you want this to be like black, then you can click the whiskers. Oh, that's pretty hard to click. Um, or let's just do the cat. So we can just click on the cat, and that gives you orange. I mean, well, yeah, orange, I guess. And this is another code saying letting thing ask what is your name, and then you can give any reply black on this. So I don't think we'll be using this, but it might be useful for you because you might want it to be interpreting language. And then this, well, I'll explain you these stuff later. And this is another thing where it says if a key is pressed, if the up arrow, left arrow, down arrow, right arrow, and any other letter keys and stuff is pressed, then a certain action will happen. And number keys, I guess. I don't really use numbers, but you can use numbers if you want. I use letters and then the arrow keys for my functions. And then this is if the mouse is down, then a certain action will happen. So you can do that. And then I think that's all you need to know for the sensing category. We won't be using any of these. Well, we'll be using reset timer. So there will be a background timer running in Scratch at all times. So if you want to show that timer, you can make it show, and then you can reset the timer after your code happens. And then, yeah. So next we can go to operators. So this is where you can apply true or false situations. So if a certain variable is greater than something, then the code will start happening. So we'll be applying these stuff later in our episodes. Well, not episodes, but videos. So just just follow my tutorials so you'll know what these are for. Well, I can't really explain them right now. If I start explaining, it'll be really complicated. But basically, these are math operators. It's literally explained in that category block. These are all categories, I forgot to tell you. And these are just more blocks. We won't be using these, but if you want to make a block for yourself or add an extension, like if you have like two mouses, you can add an extension and make that mouse. If you have like some random devices like these, then you can add it and then control from that device. And these are making command blocks. Well, it's your option, but I don't want to do that. I just stick with the command blocks provided in Scratch too. So next we have motion. We used this in our previous episode to make our sprite move after a certain thing is after a certain key is pressed. So I'll just explain that to you how it worked. So if key space is pressed, just put this, okay? And then press your space key. Wait, we have to put a if when green flag clicked so it actually works. And put it in a forever loop so it happens every single time. So keep on pressing your space key. If you press it once, it just moves 10 steps. If you keep on pressing, it happens again and again. And then it'll go to the edge. You can put it back into the center and try it again. So that's how the code that I did yesterday worked in the first place. Next, you have turn 15 degrees. This will make your sprite tilt. So let's see. That tilts the sprite. You can make it tilt as much as you want. You can make it tilt 90 degrees and then press green flag. It tilts 90 degrees. And if you want to reset it, then just we tilted it by 15 and 90, so we can reset it by saying tilt at 105 degrees. So it goes back to center. Yeah, and then next we can turn it tilt it left if we want to. and you can do that any number you want. I'm fine with how the sprite looks. So next we have point and direction. These are degrees that let you know what direction you want your sprite to point to when a certain key is pressed and the sprite moves. So if you wanted to move to the right when the arrow key is pressed, then you can point in direction 90. If you wanted to move to the left, you can put negative 90. If you wanted to move up, you can put 0. If you want to move it down, you can put that. And then you have a you have a go-to certain spot in the area. You see this X and Y coordinates. So if your mouse is at a certain area on your Scratch console, then the X and Y coordinates differ. So if you want your sprite to go somewhere in your backdrop, then you would want it to go to. So if you want it to go to the center of your backdrop, then you put 0, 0. So when you start your game, the sprite goes to 1 sec. Now you'll see a difference. Wait, I need to put this here. Sorry. So now it goes to the center. Okay. And then if you want to set X to a certain value, if you want to set this only to a certain value, it'll move to the left or right for a value. So if you wanted to set it to 15, then watch the sprite move right a bit. So the sprite just moved right a bit. Sorry, the sprite is like this. It's fine. Well, you can keep your sprite straight. I don't have time left, so I just keep like that. And if you wanted to go up a bit, then set X to 15. And then that makes it go diagonally right because you're having the X2, so it goes diagonally right. And then if you just wanted to go up, you can take this out and then just do that, and then it goes up. Yeah. Wait, 1 second, sorry. So the Y is already 15. If you like kind of put it, we don't know the center of the sprite, but if you know that the sprite is standing at 15. That's how you can change the sprite's area. So then next, you can change it. Instead of setting it at a certain value, you can change it by 15. So every single time you press green flag, it moves 15 y coordinates up. So it goes 15 y coordinates up. And then you can do the same thing with x. You can change it by a certain value. And that's pretty much it for the x and y coordinates. And then on this, you have go to certain thing. So when green flag clicked, the thing can go to mouse pointer. So you see how that happens? Well, it can't do anything right now because I'm clicking green flag, so the sprite just moves to green flag immediately. So I can make it like wait 1 second and then go. So wait, I don't think that works, but still, it lets you go to the mouse pointer. If you don't want this to happen, then just give it a certain thing to do immediately. So if you wanted to, like, give it a true or false situation. So if you want it to happen when a certain variable is greater than something, then you can make the sprite go to your mouse pointer. And that's pretty much it for the motion category. We won't be using any of these. Well, we can use this, but you can just change that in the sprite area. So we'll be just changing to left and right. Just stay in a certain spot, or we can rotate it every time, and then we can show it or hide it. Yeah, and then we'll be using this too if on edge bounds. So like basically what happens is if the sprite touches the edge, then it'll just flip around and then go to the other edge. So we can you can code that if you want the sprite to stay in this area. If you don't code this, then your sprite will just go behind in somewhere. So or else if you don't want that to happen and you don't want to use this either, then just put go to 0, 0 when green flag clicked. And that's it for the thing. This is just showing your x and y coordinates of your sprite, your certain sprite. You see how if I move my sprite around, the x and coordinates, x, y, and direction coordinates change. Well, direction doesn't really matter. We won't be using direction. You see how the x and y coordinates change if I move it. And then next, we look at, wait, let me hide this. This won't, if you want to show this, you can show this at all times, but it's interfering, so I hide it. And these are just how your sprite will look. So if when green flag click, you want your sprite to say something, you can do that. The sprite says hello. So if you're like doing a story with this, you could use the looks. Looks would be important for that. And if you just want the sprite to keep on saying something for a long time, then just put say instead of saying it for a certain time. It'll just keep on saying hello until you press stop sign. And then if you wanted to think something, then quotes will come up. So like it'll be like a thought bubble. You see that? Instead of a quote, it'll be a thought bubble. And then that's basically how the say and think works. And then this will let the thing show. So if you want this to show after something is true, then you can put that in this true or false category box. I call it a true or false category box. Have you ever said something so long it sounds so weird to say again? Well, let's get back into the video. So, yeah, I call that true or false box. And then if you wanted to hide immediately after you start the game, your sprite will hide, and then you can change your sprite's costumes. If you want to look at your sprite's costumes, just click on the costume button here, select your sprite and click on the costume. This is a costume for the sprite, so you can make it look like it's walking by making it switch to the costume. So look. Wait, I hit it 1 second. I have to show it again. So, you see how that looks like it's walking? Well, if you command it to move, then it'll look like it's walking. I'll show you how to do that later, but that's how it is. So it'll look like it's walking. And then, uh, if you can switch the background immediately after something happens. So immediately after a certain true or false category, you can make background switch, a whole bunch of stuff. Like after someone says that, and then you can go to another background to change the story. Yeah, these are all. I don't use these, but I use them when I'm like creating a short story on Scratch. And then next we have a switch costume to, so instead of next costume you can just switch it to a certain costume. Some sprites have multiple costumes, and if you put next costume it just changes to the next in line. If you put switch costume to a certain costume, then it changes to the costume you want it to be. And then yeah, uh we won't be using this. Well, we'll be using this and this, but we won't be using any of the other. So this will make, so if like you're uploading a background, if you see you're uploading a background and your sprite all goes to the back, then you can just code it to come to the front back again, and this will make your background go back. So if you don't want to code all your sprites to go front, you can simply just make your background go one layer back, so all your sprites come front. So, and that's pretty much it for the looks. Well, sounds, I'm not going to be using sounds. Y'all can learn sounds separately if you want to, but I'm not using sounds. I'm just going to be using looks. Sound won't be useful for me for my upcoming videos, so I'm going to skip on that. Pen, I won't be using this either. So sound and pen won't matter to us because we're not going to be using that. But then now we have data. Data is something like, remember I told you about variables. If a variable is like greater than something, we can keep it like this, x variable. Well, you can keep it like a timer, a score. Like you can keep it like a score, so immediately after something happens, you can change it by a certain value and stuff, and then you can show this. So, well, mine's is already shown. You can hide it immediately after green flag's clicked by doing that. So the thing hides. And this is just checking it so it hides and shows. This is manually showing and hiding it. But it won't work with other players. So I usually have to code these to make it hide and show throughout the game. So, yeah. And then if you want to make x variable, so you can apply these x variables into these operators by just doing that and saying if x variable is lesser than 0, then put that into a true or false category box, and then make it do something. So like move 10, then that will happen. So our x variable right now is 0, so it has to move 10 steps. Well, I meant not 0. Our x variable isn't 0. We have to set it to -1 for it to be lesser than 0. So I'll set my x value to -1. So x variable will be lesser than 0. And yeah, so the x variable will be lesser than 0, so the sprite will move 10 steps. Sorry, I was doing something else. So yeah, it moved 10 steps. So it's hard to see. You see the move sprite moving a bit up. So yeah, it won't be that. Uh, so if you want it to be visible, then just set it to a large amount of movement. So now you can see it visible. Yeah, that moves a bit. That's pretty much for the variables, and yeah. So and there are some backdrops located. These are backgrounds you can set on your sprite. I mean on your Scratch background. So if you're gonna be like designing a story in a bedroom, you can keep this as the background and stuff. And you can also create your own sprites. So if you just go to the paint bar, you can create a own sprite. So if you're like making if you're like making a text, you can just write something, say hello, or like game over. If you want this text to appear in the end, you can just make a sprite like this and make it appear in the end. I'll show all these advanced things later in another video, and my video is running out of time, so I'll I'll be explaining these later in another video. So yeah, like, subscribe, and share this video to your other friends. Bye.